When you identify as the divine masculine and the divine feminine, what you are in is polarity consciousness. This is a construct of three-dimensional consciousness. When we are talking about the twin flame journey and the ascension journey, which can happen outside of the twin flame journey, just to keep things very, very clear, but often is intertwined with the twin flame experience because love helps us awaken. And actually, it's not so much love that helps us awaken, but it's pain. It's pain of not having what we want, that we actually start asking ourselves, what are we doing wrong? And sometimes that's the first time we really ask ourselves, how do I show up differently? And so that's why they're intertwined. But three-dimensional consciousness is all about resolving things like karmic patterns, unavailable love, avoidant or anxious attachment style or fearful avoidant, infidelity, triangulation, and all of the barriers that prevent us from a true love experience. This is what my True Love Masterminds group is centered on. It's helping you resolve this. If you're interested, the link is in the bio. However, when you start to awaken and expand your consciousness beyond three-dimensional constructs, so polarity is also here in 3D. Male or female, right or wrong. This is dualism. This is what ascended masters in various religions have been teaching for eons, that we need to transcend in order to reach heightened levels of enlightenment, okay? But notice that in five-dimensional, so this is the 5D line, five-dimensional consciousness, we start to shift into things like unconditional love. What does that mean? That means letting your twin go. Letting them go with love, to go and be with a karmic partner or a soulmate. That's a lesson in of itself. Not claiming them and saying, you're mine, like the possessive energy, like I have to own you. It's like, can you still love them if they're loving somebody else? Most people, when they're in three-dimensional consciousness, cannot, because they have wounds and they battle those wounds and they say, well, if they love somebody else, they clearly didn't love me, or if they love somebody else, then I don't love them anymore. And you see, that's not unconditional love. Unconditional love is letting somebody be exactly who they want to express themselves as. And that means letting people go. That also means letting people be as wild or carefree without judging them, or being emotional and holding space for them and not dictating that they shouldn't feel certain ways. That's a lesson too on the twin flame journey, believe it or not. There's also gratitude and unity and non-binary. So you no longer are identifying as male or female, because the truth is, I have to say this really loud for the people in the back. We all have masculine, feminine archetypes inside of us. It is in our disintegrated state that we reject or abandon or don't nurture and integrate that part of us. So yes, when you are early on the twin flame journey, just like I was, and you're in three-dimensional consciousness, you are going to identify as a masculine or a feminine, regardless of your gender, and you are going to be wanting your other half. And over time, when you actually ascend into five-dimensional consciousness and beyond, because it goes beyond, what's going to happen is you're going to carry both energy fragments within you. You are going to be an integrated whole. You're going to come into union with yourself. You hear people talking about that. This is what this means. You come into union with yourself, and you're no longer disintegrated, split, or fragmented. You generate energy by yourself. You're in self-love, and you welcome another evolved presence into your sphere in a capacity that works for you, that may or may not look like monogamy. Aubrey Marcus, anyone? I'm just saying. But when you're in three-dimensional consciousness, you want to keep those scarcity plays going, those scripts in your mind, and the wounds around them that keep you there. I'm not saying that there can't be higher order levels of monogamy. What I'm saying is that some people have different soul paths, and that's right for them. I identify as a monogamous being by nature. I want to be in a monogamous relationship, but I've also had other experiences. And in my divine next partner, whatever that looks like, it will be an agreement that works for both of us. And my co-creation part of it, ideally, is monogamy. But that doesn't mean I'm going to impose that I'm going to consider and reflect and take the holistic view of what works for the actual soul contract. That's what being in 5-dimensional consciousness is about. It's not having this projection system and saying, well, you have to fit this manifestation list or else you're not my divine whoever it is, right? You open yourself to receive another co-creator, and you integrate polarities, you integrate energies, you integrate your shadow. You no longer see the dualism in the world as something to be feared, but something to be learned from. It's a very important journey, the ascension process. And when you start to open yourself up to what this journey is really about, you're going to understand that the narratives that we hold, the explanations and the stories that we attach ourselves to are merely constructs. Language itself is a construct. It's a symbolism that I map an internal database into this relational space that you can hear. And if our language is close enough, it's going to call forth a similar enough mapping inside of your headspace. But that in of itself is actually an illusion. It's arbitrary. These are agreed upon stories and symbols and frameworks that we have collectively decided to discuss at this particular space and time point. But actually, if you strip everything away, what we're talking about is the essence of some intangible truth of an experience that we're collectively sharing and doing our best to describe it. And when we start to impose limitations like polarity or scarcity, that's when you really start to awaken, you really start to ascend, you see through the illusion. You stop buying into the illusion of the matrix that way. And that's what the earlier parts of the twin flame journey are about teaching you. By the way, I have an awakening podcast. It's brand new on Spotify if you're interested. It's Awakening with Dr. C. The link's in the bio. It's at the very bottom of my stand store.